Have you ever wondered if a plant-based diet could truly transform your health, your energy, and your overall well-being? Well, maybe you've dabbled in different diets and different fitness routines or nutrition plans, only to feel just overwhelmed or unsure about what really works. Is a vegan lifestyle the key to vitality, or is it just another trend? And how difficult is it to make the switch? Well, today we're going to dive into those questions with health and wellness master personal trainer and coach, Kate Galli, who will share some insights on the power of plant-based living and the challenges and myths surrounding it. I am very interested in this topic and how to make it a sustainable part of your lifestyle. So stay tuned. This podcast is brought to you by DJ Works Media and HalftimeSuccess.com, offering resources and insights for those at mid-career or the halftime of life. Explore our diverse categories, including courses, coaching, health, music, software, and travel. We're here to help you make this stage of life your best ever. So get our new articles, downloads, and podcasts by signing up for weekly updates at goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Well, I'm so happy to have Kate here with us today from halfway around the world, from Australia. And so fun to have you here, Kate. So thank you for joining us.
Deborah, thank you. It is my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and it's so fun because I just noticed that you are in something very nice and cool and frilly, and I'm still in my sweater so, here in Southern California, which is funny how our weather is a little opposite. We're supposed to get some more warmth next week, so I'm looking forward to that. Well, yeah. So
Amazing. Well, I do live on the Sunshine Coast. That's where it's called. That's what it's called, Noosa. So it's often pretty warm.
Yes. And I love the accent anyway. Well, we call you have an accent. We probably have an accent to you. So it's always both ways, isn't it?
For sure.
So I usually like my guests, even though I've done a tiny bit of an intro, to introduce themselves with your background, because you have this plant-based diet, and your website is very fun, by the way. Those will be in the show notes. People will be able to get them very easily, and I'll have you tell us at the very end as well. But you just have a really fun outlook of what you're doing. And your pictures are amazing too. I mean, you just look like a model, and with you have very lean. You've got lean body mass, so I always notice that as fun. But anyway, tell us a little bit about your background and why you even pursued this plant-based diet.
Thank you so much. I'm a vegan health coach. I help busy professionals prioritize their health and happiness. The happiness is so important. We'll get to that, to thrive with plants. And let's take it way back. I joined a gym decades ago, almost 3 decades ago now, to transform, yes, my body, however, also my confidence. I was a debilitatingly shy teenager. So I got gym obsessed 3 decades ago. It would take me a further decade to turn that into a career, to become a personal trainer. And you'll likely laugh at this. I became a personal trainer at 29 years old before I was too old. That was 19 years ago now. I thought, I'm really passionate about this thing. Let's make it a career. The vegan aspect of it came, I was that little girl who loved animals and ate animals, and can even remember declaring at, up until 15 years old, I could never be a vegetarian. I loved the taste of meat so much. I ate it 3 times a day until that changed, and I became vegetarian for the animals at 16, so 30 plus years ago. The vegan component would take too long. It took 23 years until I watched a documentary, Cowspiracy, And I learned that I'd been lied to, that if I was vegetarian for the animals for ethical reasons, which was my heart, I actually needed to be vegan for the animals. And at that point in time, I'd been a personal trainer now for a decade, and I had a fit, strong, healthy, lean body that I was super confident in. I was very happy with my health. And I was really fearful that this decision, this quite big lifestyle change, was going to negatively impact my health. And in fact, I rocked into the gym type of a gym that I worked at. And I was already the weird one for being that vegetarian personal trainer. And I announced, guys, I'm going vegan. And I remember one of the trainers saying, well, goodbye lean muscle mass then. And as I said, I was fearful. However, there was nothing to be fearful of. There were only benefits, particularly so far as mindset. And I know we'll get there, but fast forward 9+ years, that's how long I've been vegan now. And I primarily focus on vegan health coaching online now, not in the gym, because, I see that as a super powerful way to advocate for the animals. And again, that's my heart. And, I would say anyone who's thrown by the word vegan, my mission in life now is to make this lifestyle as warm and welcoming and supportive, and to meet you wherever you are at. I used to be the angry vegan. I no longer am. And so that's a little bit.
Well, we are all about, in this podcast, for men and women. It's easier to brand for women at halftime, and mostly women listen anyway, but for your next steps of your life, for your second half, it could be the last third even, because it depends on how long you're are in one stage, and then you're ready to make a change. So people are looking for change, but they're also very, very concerned about their health. There's health issues, and so we'll get into some of those and maybe some of the benefits, because they may not consider this as much for the animals like you do, but they would consider it because of health reasons. And so I think that's very, very important. Health and wellness, mental, our mindsets are just very, very important. And so, but you talk about also with your background and everything, eliminating the decision-making process. What's this all about with aligning your values? I'm big on core values, by the way, huge
Amazing.
on core values, how important those are. But let's eliminate the decision-making process. I mean, none of us really, well, maybe some listening to this are going, oh, I love making a new decision. I love being able to deliberate back and forth. I don't. I like, okay, so let's just move on. So what is this all about?
Absolutely, of course. People come to me and they want to know all the best eating and exercising actions, and I've got all of that. That's really fun. However, I do first want to lay the foundation for your future ongoing success. And as you mentioned, that's by getting absolute 100% on clarity on your goal, your why, what you're looking to achieve, and the change, the impact it's going to have in your life, and most likely the lives of the people you love as well, right? So we want that clarity on your why. We want emotional intensity surrounding it. And then, super important, we need to align that with your most important values and beliefs. And for our listeners who aren't, as passionate about values as you are, Deborah, these are those emotional states that you're naturally drawn to. There's no right or wrong. However, you do have to be honest with yourself. So think of where you spend your time, your money, your energy. There's limitless. My top two are freedom and integrity. Passion's really up there as well. To explain a little further, you can imagine that if someone had a goal of potentially adopting a vegan lifestyle for their health, right? They'd heard of some of the huge health benefits. And their number one value was family or love and connection. And this individual, maybe they show love through food, right? And they had this block that adopting this plant-based, boring, bland, it's not, but that's the myth that a lot of people believe, right? they have this block that the way they're going to change the way that they eat is negatively going to impact on their family and their quality family time and such. It's going to make them it really hard to take the actions they need to take to achieve that goal of that healthy vegan lifestyle, right? They don't need to change the goal. They certainly don't need to change their values. All they need to do is think of a way to reframe it so that that goal is in alignment with those values. So potentially it might look like, what sort of a role model do I want to be to the people I love most? How long and how healthy do I want to be around to spend time with the people I love? And even how can I get really creative and transform all those family favorites to the healthy plant-based option, because anything can be vegan. So that's just a little part of how they might look at it. And you can make it work for any goal and with any value.
When we talk about that, this is a little side issue with what you were just saying. With the health issues here, when I think about plant-based, I think about, okay, so what sort of foods and how how do you get your proteins? Well, we know certain things, even how we can with tofu and some of those things, but proteins are very important to keep up muscle mass and to if you're working out and also with a vegan lifestyle. So how what are some of those foods and how do you add some of those interesting foods into your diet as well as, and to keep that whole, so if you're going to think about, being a part with your family and making some changes, some healthy changes.
Absolutely. And, I didn't get this right from the start, particularly when I went vegetarian. My focus was what I was eliminating from my diet, right? So I think I learned that lesson slowly. When I became vegan, I was all about doing it to the best of my ability because I knew all my clients and all my colleagues were going to be watching. And if I didn't get it right, it would reflect badly on the lifestyle. So I absolutely did my due diligence and I probably went over the board with hitting every single, not just macronutrient, not just your carbs, proteins, fats, every micronutrient in every single meal. And, it wasn't as delicious or easy as what my meals are now. Now I am all about the deliciousness. And it just takes a little bit of work up front to find those plant-based proteins that you love. Again, I was a personal trainer for nearly 2 decades. I'm all about the lean muscle mass and, muscle is metabolism, sits there burning fat 24/7, just looking all sexy, and we feed it with protein. I advocate 15 to 20 grams of protein, a meal and a snack. And, you just go through the plant proteins that perhaps you already like. Perhaps you try some new ones. You focus on abundance and diversity. I'll share, when I was vegetarian, I ate such less diversity, even when I ate animals, such less diversity than what I eat now because I've had to get creative. I've had to explore those lentils and legumes and tofu and different ways of cooking these products. And, the meals are so much more delicious now. However, I will warn, you'll have recipe flops early days, like you've probably had in all the years that you've cooked meat, that everyone that eats animals, you've had some failures, right? Doesn't mean that food is a no-go zone or disgusting or bland. It just means you need to seek out some resources online, many of them are free, and find those recipe wins. And a really good place to start is with those meals that are almost vegan anyway. Your cereal or oats or smoothie at breakfast time that just needs a swap of the plant milk. And if you want that extra protein, a couple of tablespoons of hemp seeds or even some plant-based protein powder. That wrap or salad you love at lunchtime that's tuna, and you swap that to chickpea tuna or to marinated tofu or tempeh. That curry you love at dinner time, which is amazing to make en masse. And that is one of my huge tips to food prep to make it easy during the busy week. It was a chicken curry and now it's a chickpea curry. Really simple swaps that don't feel like you're absolutely overhauling everything, because that could be overwhelming and we don't want that.
Right. Wow. So, I mean, some of those, I just had lunch in our time frame. We are in a total different time frames here what we're talking. But I mean, because I love chicken and I love tuna, my tuna, but you're talking about chickpea curry. I mean, that sounds great. It sounds, very delicious. And just with the right recipes, because we've all done plenty. I've definitely done plenty of experiments that have not turned out quite right. I don't always enjoy time in the kitchen. Basically, I have to use my
See
time
that?
other places.
I agree. Like, I used to be a really lazy cook, right? And then I learnt that the best way to advocate for the lifestyle, apart from being fit and strong, is to lead with deliciousness. So I kind of
Right.
had to get better. I still want to make it easy and I still
Yeah.
want to make it fun. And so I
Hmm.
should share, I also came up with the 5 S's of plant-based protein to make it
Okay.
really easy and fun for
Okay.
my clients.
That's
So
good.
the first S is the star of the show, right? And that's probably
Okay.
how you used to cook, where, say, what's for dinner, mum? Steak, chicken. The protein is the star. And it
Mm-hmm.
still can be plant based. Maybe your tofu or your lentils is the star. That's the
Hmm.
first one. Next up is scatter, right? So you've got this abundant, delicious meal. Maybe it's a little bit lacking in the protein. And so you scatter over the top of it your plant based protein, like your hemp seeds, more protein per gram than beef, your pumpkin seeds, your crispy quinoa. I love that
Ah.
stuff. Whatever it may be, that's the scatter. Next up, we've got the stir through. Great for breakfast. Again, I mentioned your oats or your cereal. You're used to it. You love it. Could do with a little bit more protein. So we're going to stir through some chia seeds to thicken it up, some plant-based protein for that sweetness,
Mm-hmm.
limitless types of plant-based protein. Next up, we've got the side. I do this all the time. Perhaps you're entertaining for friends and family who aren't vegan and, they've got their whatever it is off on the side that someone else cooked and you've made a really abundant couple of salads for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're amazing, but they're lacking in protein. So you just have a little easy side of edamame, 17 grams of protein per cup, or marinated tofu, crispy butter beans, whatever it may be. Final one, maybe my favorite, the sauce. When I wasn't vegan, most of the sauces that I loved were full of fat and salt and low nutrient value, high caloric density. Now I've discovered all these super high value sauces like a tofu ricotta, an edamame guac, even like a cheese like a sun-dried tomato cashew cheese. And they're chock full of protein and flavor. And so they're the sneaky sauces that get those plant-based protein fixes in as well.
Wow. I mean, it all just sounds delicious. It sounds
Yeah.
like a lot of time, first of all, in making sure that you prepare them. But if you can prepare them ahead of time, um, anyone who's an entrepreneur is used to bulk recording and bulk doing, see, I do a lot of that because I travel. So this is just bulk cooking. You're doing it all at the same time. So, but you've really thought through those recipes. And I think that's really important is if you're going to go, and especially if you're looking at this for health reasons. When I'm looking at some of my health decisions right now, and, trying to, it's a little bit hereditary of a little bit of a higher cholesterol that I face a little bit. And I'm thin. I'm not, that doesn't have, I'm not, having high in other areas, but I'm still very conscious nutritionally about, lowering that with nutrients and not in other ways. I'm very, very committed to doing that. So you just find out different ways. So here you are with a vegan lifestyle and being able to do that in many ways with this sort of plant-based diet. So go ahead.
Absolutely. I do want to bust that time myth because any healthy lifestyle, I don't care what your healthy lifestyle is going to take a little bit of time. I went out early days vegan. I went out with a non-vegan gent who was into bodybuilding. He spent so much more time and his food was so much more bland and boring than mine. So any healthy lifestyle takes a little bit of time. However, it can take that time in one block on the weekends. I
Mhm.
ran a food prep challenge in my online community last month, and often I was pressed for time, and I would just spend 1 hour to 90 minutes prepping as much food as possible. That literally made my dinners during the week 5-minute meals, just
Wow. So
throw
great.
together meals. So it's just a little bit of planning in a
Yes.
small block of time, and you basically make it work with the time that you personally have available.
I love that. I mean, that is really important, actually, because it makes you willing to plan ahead, make good choices. A lot of life is choices. Yeah, and when you're hungry, what good choices?
True.
Keeping nuts on the side, always keeping things to see, healthy snacks, a healthy fruit, all of that on the side is very, very important to have available. And then you make those healthy choices. Of course, dark chocolate too, by the way, is very important in my diet sometime during the day. So you have this 8-step self-care guide to help people thrive if they are making a change and thriving on plants. And you've explained some of that too, which is really, I think, very informative because it doesn't have to be boring. The things that you even mentioned with some of the recipes and some of the eating, it just sounds very healthy and good. So what are some of the best reasons for adopting this sort of diet, and what is the if you can encapsulate those 12 steps for us?
So far as the best reasons, they are almost limitless. As you know, I went vegan for the animals. However, whether it's for your health or whether it's for the environment or whether it's for human rights, because a lot of
Mhm.
humans are negatively impacted by the way that we exploit animals. I could spend hours on this, so I won't go there. The information is out there. However, when you make this decision, and maybe we will get to this, but you will find that the toughest part of a more plant-based or vegan lifestyle is not the food. It becomes really, really easy. It becomes managing relationships with non-vegan loved ones.
Oh,
And
interesting.
that's, yeah, I learned that the hard
Mm.
way. And that is why self-care is so vital. And obviously, self-care is vital as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, irrespective of the way that you
Mhm.
choose to eat. So I do love an acronym. Let's power on with this 8-step acronym. And the
Mhm.
S in self-care is for self-talk. You're the only one that you get to spend 24/7 with. So you want to ensure the way that you speak to yourself is supportive. E, we've already touched on, it's elicit your most important values and use them as a filter for your daily decision-making process. There's
Mhm.
nothing more exhausting and incongruent than living a life and making decisions that are not aligned with your values. So I truly believe it is a type of self-care to know what your values are and have the discipline and courage to live a life aligned with them.
Mhm.
L is a little bit more obvious, especially for a personal trainer. It's to lock and load the big rocks that keep you happy and healthy. So this is the food prep, the meditation, the 7 to 8 hours sleep, the exercise, of course, the
Mhm.
time in nature, whatever it is for you. And you likely know what it is for you. Lock and load them as a non-negotiable appointment with yourself in your calendar. F is filter the people you spend time with. And absolutely, this means those energy vampires that suck your energy, right? It
Mhm.
also means those friends or mentors that you feel absolutely amazing when you've spent time with them. Try and filter a little more of that person into your life.
Mhm.
C is create a not to do list. I may be suggesting a lot of new things for our listeners to do, potentially, and it starts first with buying yourself some time and creating that not to do list of some of the things you're not going to prioritize. 6 is a new one for me. I used to always say, I must do this again. I am doing it now. I love it. A is a 24-hour digital detox. We're giving yourself some free time away from email, away from anything online, certainly away from social media. I pick a time on a Saturday where I close up the computer and the phone for 24 hours, usually around
Mhm.
lunchtime Saturday till lunchtime Sunday. Only do it if you want to start the week to come fresh, focused, full of energy for your week to
Mhm.
come. 7, potentially my favorite, R is for realistic expectations of both yourself and the people you love. So
Mhm.
this is super important to my vegan friends. You know, we put really high pressure on ourselves. We often have really high expectations of everyone else. We expect them to take in the information we took in and make the same decision. And sad fact, 99% of the time they don't. Certainly they don't in the time frame we would love. And definitely they don't when we bombard them with brutal truth bombs and judgment. And so my advice to myself that I have to give myself every single day is, I can have slightly higher expectations of myself. I need to lower the bar for my loved ones. I need to meet them where they're at. And I need to focus first on what we have in common, hunt down what we have in common, and not focus on what they're not doing yet. If this all sounds like a lot, E has got your back. E is for easy 5-minute quick fixes, right?
Okay.
So whatever it is that takes just 5 minutes, sitting in the sun or walk around the block, writing down your goals and gratitudes, phoning a friend, dancing to your favorite song, whatever it is that's simple and you can do nearly anywhere, that is the easy 5-minute quick fixes.
Wow. Well, those are great. I'm sure they can find them in all of your materials too, and they'll be able to listen to this over and over to be able to get those 8 steps. And so those, not to be overwhelmed. They're basic. And what are some of the best reasons that some people would decide to embark on this plant-based diet? And this is not just vegetarian, it's vegan. So what is the difference there, by the way, with both of those?
Yeah. So I was vegetarian 23 years. I still ate basically all animal products that weren't meat or fish or coming from those animals, I guess. In my mind, I thought the animal wasn't dying when I still ate eggs and dairy. And it's just a matter of the time frame in which they die. And sadly, they still are very much. And so that's vegetarian. Vegan lifestyle is an ethical decision made out of compassion to avoid all animal exploitation to the best of your ability living in a non-vegan world. I'm still going to get in an Uber that has leather seats. However, I'm not going to buy leather shoes or watch animals used in entertainment or certainly eat any product that comes from an animal. So the best reason for me to do it was to lift that huge weight of incongruency that some people who love animals and still eat animals or animal products as I still did, maybe you're slightly aware at a conscious level of this heaviness, or maybe you're completely unconscious so far as this heaviness and incongruency and the mental gymnastics you have to do to convince yourself it's still okay. The marketing you have to believe. And I believed it for decades, no judgment there. But the best benefit for me was that weight was lifted and the feeling that I am now living a lifestyle that is completely, like so many areas to improve. However, so far as the vegan ethic, it is completely aligned with my values of freedom and integrity. For me, that was the big one. For most people, it's going to be the huge health benefits. It's going to be the fact that particularly if you go plant-based, which basically means not junk food, right? You could
Yes.
You could live on chocolate and Oreos and burgers and chips that are vegan, great for the animals, a little bit better for the environment, rubbish for your health.
Right.
So whole food plant-based, as minimally processed and as diverse as possible is my recommendation. And the huge benefits there are that these foods tend to be a lot higher nutrient density and a lot lower caloric density. So if you're an emotional eater like myself and you absolutely love huge, bright, vibrant, abundant meals, a lot of people, my goal was to stay at my current weight, which I did. However, a lot of people, if weight loss or any health improvements are actually your goal, it can feel a lot easier. It can feel absolutely zero restriction, all about abundance, as long as you focus on the food that you're giving your body and not the items that you're eliminating. From an environmental impact, that is, probably one of the more growing ways that people adopt a more plant-based lifestyle. Just logically, and all the stats are there to back me up. But if you think we spend so many resources so far as land, water, waste created, forests mowed down and destroying the homes of the animals that lived in those forests to either grow food to feed animals or to clear land to graze animals on. And then we process those animals and we just eat a small fraction of that individual animal and create a whole lot of waste and destruction in the process. It's just not an efficient process. So a lot of people adopt the lifestyle because that's something that they care about. And again, zero judgment or guilt from me on this, because we've all been lied to, and it's really easy to believe the marketing that supports the habits that you love and you don't want to change. You better believe I'm going to believe the marketing that says a glass of red wine a day is good. Hell yeah, for sure. I want to keep drinking my Shiraz, right? I'm going to stick my little head in the sand so far as that. So I get completely understand as well in relation to a vegan lifestyle. So those are just some, like, the benefits to me are limitless, and you only become more aware of them as you, one step at a time at your own pace, adopt the lifestyle.
Yes, I agree too. But you have to know what I would think most of the listeners to this would probably consider this for more health reasons, or just adding more healthy choices in their life. And so when you mentioned some of those are very appealing to me, because my morning oatmeal, I will add all sorts of things in there, with nuts and with some seeds. And it's delicious to be able to do that. So, and many fruits as well. So, what are your top of your tips to adopt this? You've already shared some of those of, your mental mindset. I mean, that's important, but things that you wish that you had learned a little bit earlier on adopting this, because you've also shared about your cooking expeditions early. So what are some of those tips that you would give people? Maybe they're just wanting to make a little change just to eat healthier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. As I mentioned, focus first on abundance and diversity and the foods that you're adding, rather than that strict focus on what you're removing. Potentially try foods that you thought you hated as a child. Our taste buds and luckily cooking ability changes as we get older. I was scared of all legumes. I was fearful of so many foods when I was vegetarian. I advocated for a high protein, low carbohydrate vegetarian approach. And, now I've embraced all these whole plant foods. Carbs don't make you fat. Fake foods make you fat, right? So whole food carbohydrates like potatoes and lentils and fruit. Focus first on that abundant approach. I'm a huge fan of food prep over meal prep. Early days vegan, I used to prep whole entire meals, and it was quite time consuming, and it got a little bit boring as well because I'd be eating same. And now my approach is more food prep, where I'll prep a handful of individual components each weekend. So let's say one veg, maybe a kale slaw, like a cruciferous veg slaw, or a huge baked tray of veggies, or a green goddess salad, whatever it may be. One veg, one protein. So it might be a really simple, spicy lentil, or a marinated tofu, or a crispy chickpea, whatever it may be. One sauce. So again, I always have a hummus and a vegan mayo, but a tofu ricotta is pretty amazing as well, or that cashew cheese. So you've got your veg, your protein, your sauce, good to go at the beginning of the week. And it's just, you feel in control of the week when you have those components prepped. And the good thing is that they can come together in a variety of ways, depending on what you feel like, on what else you've got to use up, on who else you're eating with, what's on special at the supermarket. So you have that variety, right? I have to finish with mindset again, though, because this is what makes it easier for everyone. You're starting with the food actions. I get it. The sustainability, again, I want you to come back to your why to get really clear on why, even if you want to use the term trying it, you don't have to lock and load and commit forever yet. But get really clear on your why, because with any big lifestyle change, there are going to be struggle street inconvenient times, and you want to have absolute clarity and emotional intensity around that clarity. Seek out the documentaries at the time you're ready to see them. Maybe don't inflict them on yourself straight away, but once you're eating a little bit less animals, you'll probably be able to bit by bit watch a little bit at a time, and seek out the mentors online also that are living the lifestyle you want to live. You know, for me, I sought out the vegans that had fit, strong, smoking hot, healthy bodies, right? I wanted to see that that was possible. But whoever you respect and admire, seek out the version, the athlete, the intellectual, the whatever it may be. Seek out that individual. They share a lot of their life and what they eat online, and just model their behaviors, model their approach so far as nutrition, what they say yes to, what they say no to. And I think that's really effective for sustainability.
Wow, that's great advice there, because that mindset, when you talk about an angry vegan, I guess you went through that stage. You know, when you have, it's like, where's my food, or where's my comfort, and do I really want to stay on this? And going back to your why is so very, very important, and why you were doing this, whether it's for health reasons, and that's important too. When you go out to eat with friends, and all of a sudden you have these choices to make, and want to make good choices, healthy choices, and you feel like, you know, everyone's looking at you, and but so understanding now, it's a lot more accepted. I think with people that are, you know, when you're with a group of friends, it's very much accepted on what, you know, you make those choices of how to eat, you know, differently, you know, at a meal. So what go
I
ahead.
want to touch on the angry vegan just briefly, because for me, it was nothing about the food. The food will become easy very fast. That anger was first because I'd been lied to
Oh.
by governments, by big corporations, by marketing, by mainstream media. I'd still been perpetuating this cycle of cruelty, which is animal agriculture, without knowing the harm that I was causing. So that was why I was angry. Even more so, I was angry at my non-vegan loved ones that didn't make the same choice when presented with the same information.
Interesting.
And that, as you can imagine, was not good for my relationships. It caused, it was so fraught. It was annihilating my relationships and my joy in life. And I eventually learnt in the hardest possible way that as much as I care, as much as I'm seeking a vegan world, right? And I am, my goals are huge. What I need to do is be effective in my approach, and leading with judgments and truth bombs was not the least bit effective. When people feel attacked, they put their defenses up, right? It wasn't effective. It wasn't fun. It absolutely wasn't sustainable. And that was eventually when I made the decision to lead with love and compassion and deliciousness, and meet these loved ones where they're at. And so I made a conscious decision to not be an angry vegan. My little heart still gets really angry and sad and frustrated. But part of why I share that I'm no longer an angry vegan, it's accountability. You know, it's that commitment to myself and to others that this is the approach I will now take.
And I think that's important. It applies to other areas too, Kate.
Yes, it does.
I always say, you know,
Yeah.
we're not gonna talk about religion or politics.
Yeah.
You know, lead with lifestyle, what you love to do, and that speaks volumes.
100%.
People see that down the road, and they usually come to me and ask me. So that's much better than just being judgmental and you can still make your choices and not make a big deal about them. You just
Yeah.
say, no, I'd rather do this, and you can still be friendly and have great conversations. I think having conversations, people are afraid to talk to each other or like, oh, they're going to be offended. No, there needs to be some acceptance of at least having conversations. I think that's important. This has been a great conversation today. Yeah, Kate, I've learned some things. I've been inspired to look at some recipes. I'm sure there's plenty online, and I'm sure you have some resources as well. Can you give, is there one last word of advice? And then I want you to give your information, how people can contact you. They will have that in the show notes. All they need to do is click. But I also want you to give that so people can listen.
Yeah. We've touched on the matter of overwhelm a little bit, and
Mhm.
potentially, everything I've discussed might feel a little bit overwhelming. I used to think of overwhelm as, I used to do it really well, right? And I'd focus on everything with a particular focus on what was not within my control. And sadly, there is
Mhm.
so much that is not within our control right now.
Right.
I now see overwhelm as scattered, lazy thinking. And the
Mm.
solution, obviously, I've got an acronym, but the first letter is the most important. O is for only focus on what you can control and have the clarity and discipline to prioritize those things that you can control and just start with the one next best step. So that is my advice to our listeners and to myself every single day as well. If the overwhelmed beast wants to rear its ugly head, best place to get in touch with me is via the website, strongbodygreenplanet.com. I'm also a podcaster. You'll find the Healthification podcast there, 900 plus episodes deep. You'll find my free online community, Plant Positive, on School, where I help vegans and people who are plant curious thrive with plants by achieving clarity, confidence, and consistency. And finally, you'll find my Plant Positive journal, a venture of the heart dedicated to my dear mum, posts internationally, and it's a little vegan Trojan horse that's a stunning daily planner full of artwork and recipes that also helps you adopt a healthy plant-based lifestyle just one step at a time at your own pace.
And I love the one step at a time. I'm big on that too. One step, a little step, then you can create momentum, another little step.
100%.
No matter what you're doing, whether you're adapting just a healthier way of eating, lifestyle, and healthy carbs, healthy fats, healthy all of these other good recipes within our diets. So thank you so much. This has been just a great deal of fun. I've learned some things today. I love the podcast format because I learn so much and I meet people from all over the world, just like you, Kate, in Australia. How fun this is. And this was really, really fun. So I've never really interviewed anybody that was totally a vegan, totally like what you are. So I've interviewed nutritionalists, but this was a little different. I thought that would be just interesting to find out more about it. And really what's driving you is just not your health reasons, but your passion and your commitment, to animals. And there are people that really think this way. So I think that's important. That may not be totally my conviction, but my conviction is very important with the health reasons. And I think that's something we all need to consider, especially as we get through these mid years. And those are very important decisions and looking at our eating habits all the way through there. And you can make great choices that taste great, that fill us up. Yeah, that you look forward to. Thank you so much, Kate. And thank you all for listening all the way through. And this has been delightful. I've enjoyed it. Hopefully you will continue connecting with us. I'm here every week, at least once a week. And I love being able to produce some of these guests as well as other shows available. So make sure you connect, and I will look forward to seeing everyone again next time. So bye-bye for now. Thank you for joining us. It is because of our wonderful listeners like you that we keep going strong week after week. We'd love it if you'd share and follow us to not miss a single show and even write a review. You can also find all of our articles, products, and links at womenathalftime.com.